Okay, I just want to welcome everybody to the ABFM update now and the future of ABFM certification. Dr. Gary LeRoy is going to be doing the presentation. He is the Vice President of Diplomate Experience at the American Board of Family Medicine. The Illinois Academy adheres to a DEI statement that is listed here, and we do this in everything that we put out. Housekeeping, all attendees are in listen-only mode. If you have any questions, you may enter it into the chat and we'll read it at the end of the presentation. CME credit, you are getting credit for this. You will need to do an evaluation at the end of the program, and the link is here. It will also go into the chat. The Illinois Academy of Family Physicians is accredited by the Accreditation Council for Continuing Medical Education, ACCME, to provide continuing medical education to physicians. The AAFP has reviewed the ABFM update now and the future of ABFM certification and has deemed it acceptable for up to 1 live AAFP prescribed credits for the term of this approval is today through today. We are also applying for enduring for this materials as well. The disclosure here is that the speaker, Dr. Gary LeRoy, Gordana Kirkich, and Jennifer O'Leary do not have any financial relationship or interest in any of the products, marketing, or any of the items being presented tonight. So all disclosures were none. Okay, and now I'm going to stop sharing and hand this over to Dr. LeRoy.
Thank you very much, Jennifer. I appreciate the opportunity to meet virtually with the members of the Illinois Academy and tell you a little bit about the ABFM Board Certification process. Ashley Webb is my associate at the ABFM, and I think she would agree that the two things that we hear asked most of diplomates is one, about the longitudinal assessment, what they have and what we have to do to participate in the longitudinal assessment, or those of us that are still in the 10-year cycle, what they have to do to finish up their cycle. And the second thing is performance improvement. So we'll talk most about the new certification process, as well as pivoting to the performance improvement process. And I'm just going to give you a little background really quick about the fact that if I sound very stuffy and such, is because I have the flu. So I am sitting here in my home, just recovering from that. So yes, you get to hear the stuffy me do this presentation. We'll see how it goes with my brain fog. So the objectives of the session tonight is to talk a little bit about why do we have to do board certification, and describe the new ABFM current certification process that started as of January of this year, and share some of the recent enhancements and improvements to your experience as a diplomate of ABFM, and to introduce what we call Certification 2025, which is now the 5-year cycle and how it works. Next slide. So what is the vision of the ABFM? And it's, as we all do, we have the same purpose. It's to optimize the health and healthcare of all people that we serve in the communities that we serve as family physicians. Next slide, please. So just a quick look at our board of directors for 2024 and 25. As you can see, these are family physicians from all over the nation. And what's somewhat unique to our board is that we have 2 public members that you see here. And the public members are non-physicians, and they bring a very unique perspective to our board as individuals that are not physicians. And sometimes they ask some very probing questions as to why we do certain things and why we are not providing certain services and such. Like one of the most unique things or intriguing things I heard one of the public members ask was why we wait 10 years to do recertification, because as she said, my hairdresser has to get recertified every 2 years. Why do physicians get recertified every 10 years? Next slide, please. What you'll see unique about our new website, which was launched in April of 2024, is that instead of having stock photos on our landing sites, we now have our higher standard campaign that indicates that we have individuals that are not stock photos. Many of you are familiar with who Reed Blackwelder is, a former president of the American Academy of Family Physicians. And you'll see photos of a lot of different folks, a diverse array of diplomates, and their personal statements of why they are board certified. So throughout this presentation, you'll see a few of these slides. And so the question about why board certification, patients really expect their doctors or assume that their doctors are very knowledgeable in what they do. And if they have the stamp of approval as a board certified family physician, there's the assumption that they're confident in what we do, and that they can trust their family physicians because they're qualified to take care of them throughout their life cycle, and that is providing a higher quality of care. Next slide, please. So I'm often asked this question about, well, what do you have that proves that certification matters? Show me some data, or is there any research that supports that? Well, there is research. I used to lug a few articles around with me when I go to various states, just articles, not about why certification is important for physicians, but I pulled an array of studies about why like aircraft pilots need to be certified, why your mechanic needs to be certified, why engineers need to be certified. Well, it kind of boils down to this Pittsburgh study where it says there's evidence behind continuing certification examinations that these 4 factors, that cognitive skills need to be kept current. Some of you may have patients that are airline pilots, and they will come into your office and they'll talk about the fact that, I have to do all these touch and goes. I have to do all these things to prove that to keep my certification current and such. So it's not something that's unique to us as family physicians. As a matter of fact, board certification is not something that's just unique to us as family physicians, because all of the different specialties of medicine have to be have board certification criteria that they have to meet. Number 2, that individual self-assessment is not enough, because if left to our own devices, when we go to CME courses and such, we're going to take CME that we're interested in or that pertains to something relatively unique that we do. But as family physicians, we take care of what they call cradle to grave care. And so as family physicians, we really don't know what's going to be behind the door when we walk into our examination rooms. So we have to do more than just individual self-assessment. And 3, testing enhances learning and motivation. When you know that you have to do that cognitive examination, it motivates us to learn. And 4, goals and consequences are important motivators. When you know that you need to do these self-assessments to be board certified, and you know that cognitive examination is coming forward, it motivates us to be better. Next slide. So these are the 4 pillars of Board Certification. And I know it says ABFM Board Certification, but these are pretty much the same pillars that all the 24 specialty boards basically do. First of all, board certification, you have to be have a license that is a full and not have any kind of restrictions in them that comply with our guidelines and such. So the second one is self-assessment and lifelong learning, and these help to identify gaps in our knowledge. I remember I'm a recovering Dean of Student Affairs and Admissions, and I remember reading a lot of personal statements that we did when we applied to medical school, and quite a few of them said, you know, I really want to be have a profession where there's lifelong learning. I heard that over and over again, and something about when we get over 50, it's just like, yeah, maybe I don't need any more lifelong learning. Well, that's not true for board certification. Lifelong learning continues as we progress through our profession. And then performance improvement to identify opportunities for growth. That is what performance improvement is about, opportunities for growth. And I dare say that the vast majority of us want to be better individuals, better professionals as we progress through our careers and such. And then the final thing is the cognitive assessment, the examination that measures your clinical knowledge in an objective way. So these are the four pillars that signify all the components of board certification. Next slide. So many of us are still in our 10-year cycle, with 3-year stages in that cycle. These 3-year stages follow ABFM's professionalism guidelines, and as you can see, these are the four components of that that I just mentioned. Your certification, self-assessment, and lifelong learning, your CME, continuing medical education, and the performance improvement. And then you have the cognitive examination every 10 years, and then your annual certification fee. So this is the cycle that many of us are still in. And I will point out that when people say, oh, I want to keep my 10-year cycle, well, that's not an option anymore, first of all. But if you look at your 10-year cycle, we have been in the process of having recertification every 3 years, because we have to do all of these things every 3 years. So even though it says, oh, I have a 10-year certification, well, you could lose your certification if you don't complete one of these 3-year cycles. So it's kind of a myth that we have 10 years, because really it's 3 years, 3 years, and 3 years. Let's move on. So the exam requirement, the purpose of it, as I mentioned earlier, was to have an objective assessment of your knowledge and practice across a wide spectrum of the conditions that are treated by family physicians. As family physicians, we see it all. It's not just, oh, I just do emergency rooms. So can you just give me a test on just emergency rooms? Or I just do women's health. Can you give me a test on that? No, the short answer is no, because you're a family physician, and this examination examines your expertise or your cognitive abilities over the wide spectrum of the specialty of family medicine. There's now 2 ways that you can fulfill your exam requirement. You can do the longitudinal assessment, which will be the default assessment that you will do. If you, at the end of our 10-year cycle, for those of us that are ending our 10-year cycle, which mine ends in 2026, I will go into the longitudinal assessment. Now, there will be some that say, I don't want to do the longitudinal assessment. I just want to get it over with. I just want to take the one-day examination. You can opt to do the one-day examination if that's what you want to do. Okay, so that's the knowledge. Next. So how does the longitudinal assessment work? For those of you that have not been in the longitudinal assessment, I suspect there are a few on the call that have already started in the longitudinal assessment. It begins in January of the exam year. It has 25 questions online per quarter. So you can do those 25 questions all at once. You can do one a day. You can do 5 a week. You can do however many you want at each time you turn it on. And that's 25 questions. And no, you cannot do more than 25 questions per quarter. It's complete with 300 questions, and you can do those 300 questions without stopping over 13 quarters, and then you would be finished with your 300 questions in 3 years. Or, life happens to you, and so there may be times where you say, I just really don't have time to do this particular quarter. And so those questions that you missed, 25 questions, if you missed those, then they would go into your 4th year. You can defer up to 100 questions over that first 3 years, and then basically you would have the 4th year to finish those 100 questions. There's also immediate feedback. Unlike the one-day examination, when you just do your 300 questions and you wait and see whether you passed or not, and you don't have immediate feedback. Well, with the longitudinal assessment, you do get immediate feedback as to why you got the question right or why you got the question wrong. There's 5 minutes per question. The one-day examination, you get about 1.5 minutes per question. This one, the longitudinal assessment, you get 5 minutes per question. And sometimes people will ask, well, why 5 minutes? Well, not of the other specialty boards that have gone to the longitudinal assessment, all of them do not give 5 minutes. I have not found any that have given more than 5 minutes. Some do 2 minutes, some do 4 minutes. So 5 minutes is rather generous compared to the other specialty boards. Now, if you do have some sort of reading disorder or some sort of disorder that causes you to need more than 5 minutes, you can apply for a waiver so that they can give you more time. But those are very seldom that we have those situations. And then you do get 10 points for your certification credits when you do the longitudinal assessment, and you do get 30 CME credits for participating in the longitudinal assessment. And if needed, you can do the one-day examination in the 5th year. Now, I'll stop here and just basically say this so that everybody hears me say this, because I didn't think I had to, but you do have to pass the longitudinal assessment. You do have to pass the longitudinal assessment, just like you have to pass the one-day examination to continue your certification. So you can fail it. It's about 93% of individuals pass the longitudinal assessment, and about 93% of individuals pass the one-day examination. So they are comparable. And I will also state that the 300 questions that you take for the one-day examination are basically the same 300 questions you take for the longitudinal assessment. Moving on. So this is kind of the feedback that we had from our diplomates over the last 5 years about the longitudinal assessment. The thing that I will point out right smack dab in the middle there is that 92% of individuals find that the longitudinal assessment is less test anxiety provoking. And 99% of surveyed individuals, which I find stunning, say that the questions on the longitudinal assessment are more relevant to the practice of family medicine. So it's very evident to us at the board that the longitudinal assessment needs to be the opt-in, not the opt-in, but the default examination from this point on. When we asked diplomates years ago about this, what we could do different, and people would say, you need to get rid of that one-day examination. I hate that one-day examination. Well, for a variety of reasons, we had to see if we could find another option, and the longitudinal assessment was the obvious option. And they started with a pilot of that in I think it was 2018, and after piloting it, we started getting comments like this, and we realized that this is the way to go. And also, I did fail to mention that when you're doing the longitudinal assessment, in that 5 minutes, you can check references and resources to answer the questions also. But I will say this, stop here and say this, checking a reference doesn't mean sitting there with a colleague and doing the longitudinal assessment with you. It is just like the one-day examination. It is a secure examination. And so you cannot be using a reference or using this thing for taking a picture of the questions and then downloading them into some sort of app that is an AI app to answer the question for you. So you can't use artificial intelligence and take a copyrighted secure question and basically put it into AI and have AI answer the question for you. Because what you do when you grab this thing and take a picture of it and put it into AI, now it's out in cyberspace. And we have found several of our questions from the secure examination out in cyberspace. And so they are watching. They are looking at that. And if we trace it back to a particular diplomate, a diplomate can lose their board certification for up to 6 years. So it's important for people to understand that. Next. And when you're in the 5-year cycle, this is on the previous slide, but when you're in the 5-year cycle, you continue to have your certification for all 5 years of that cycle. So unlike the previous way with the one-day examination where you have to pass the examination, and if you don't pass the examination, you lose your certification. When you enter the 5-year cycle, you have your certification for 5 years. Self-assessment. This is a lot of what we do. We do it, the board offers this self-assessment in several different ways. It's designed to help identify knowledge gaps that can be reviewed and updated so that you continue to do better in these areas that we if we don't use that, we kind of lose knowledge about certain things. So you can do the knowledge self-assessments. These are kind of specialty areas. That's those 60 questions that you answer. A lot of us have defaulted to going to our particular chapters and doing knowledge self-assessments, doing the 60 questions on hypertension, women's health, pediatrics, and such. But you're getting a lot of knowledge and a deeper knowledge about a particular subject in one fell swoop. Now, you can do these knowledge self-assessments as they started, where you just do them on your own. But we have found over time that a number of us like to do it in mass at the knowledge self-assessment seminars and such. And then we have the continuous knowledge self-assessments. These are the 25 questions every quarter. that you answer. You don't have to answer them correctly, but it does give you an opportunity to learn about various aspects of the specialty of family medicine. You find out immediately whether you got it right or wrong, and then you can read the critique as to why you got the questions right or wrong. And then there's also comments that from others that are taking the examination, how many got them right and how many got them wrong, and why. And the continuous knowledge self-assessments are very, very similar to the longitudinal assessment that you take for your cognitive examination. So much so that we're in the future, near future, we're going to change the look and feel of the continuous knowledge self-assessment, because some people are doing the knowledge self-assessment and they say, oh yeah, I'm taking the longitudinal assessment, which they're not. The longitudinal assessment has a little clock that's there that gives you the 5-minute timer. The continuous knowledge self-assessment does not have a timer on it. You can pull up a question and go out and eat dinner and come back, and there it is. You can answer it when you come back from dinner. That's not the case with the longitudinal assessment. And the longitudinal assessment also has a little speedometer to tell you how you're doing with your examination too, whether you're close to passing or close to failing the examination. You don't see that on a continuous knowledge self-assessment. It's a self-assessment. There's also the National Journal Club, which we'll tell you a little bit about, that you can read various national journal articles and such for self-assessment. And then there's also alternative activities that you can get points for your self-assessment activities. Next slide, please. So here's the National Journal Club. It's a convenient way to look at peer-reviewed articles at no charge, in New England Journal of Medicine or JAMA, and a variety of notable journals. The articles are selected by a national committee of family physician experts, and it's based on relevancy to the specialty of family medicine, and these are very good articles, and they give us knowledge about certain things that impact our practices and such. So about 80 to 100 articles are available each year, and you can read as many as you want. You answer 4 questions per article, and you receive CME credit and certification points for doing reading the articles and answering the questions. And the numbers, this number 27,000 diplomates participating, has probably gone up since we produced this slide. So it's especially popular with the residents and some of the diplomates that are fresh out of residency. Next slide, please. And here's the feedback about the National Journal Club. Greater than 95% of the participants are very pleased with the National Journal articles. And they feel that they're very user-friendly, they're very relevant to the practice of family medicine, and they're intended to help diplomates really change their practice of medicine. You can see that this one article there from the American College of Gastroenterology, guideline updates and such. And again, how many of us don't see GI problems on a regular basis and such? So, so again, if you have not taken a look at the National Journal Club articles, I advise you to give it a whirl. Next slide, please. And then that lifelong learning, the continuing medical education. CME is earned at your state medical board or the AAFP, American Academy of Family Physicians, applies for these ABFM certification. Now, sometimes I think I hear there's some confusion about, well, I have to get CME for my state, license, and I have to get CME for the AAFP, and I have to get CME for the ABFM. And people sometimes think that they have to do different CME for all three of those entities. Well, if I do CME and get 50 points, and depending on what state you're in, say you have to get 50 CME for the state of Ohio where I'm at, or Illinois, then, well, you can still use the same 50 CME for the AFP and for the ABFM. Now, there is some criteria broken down as to category 1 CME versus category 2 CME. And then at some places they call it division and such. So just check and make sure that you're getting enough CME to fulfill at least half of that to be fulfilled in that category 1 or division 1 credit. That's live CME or CME that's produced by family physicians, involvement with family physicians and such. So if you have questions, get in contact with us about that, or get in contact with the AFP about their criteria. The total hours overall are pretty much parallel with the AAFP. And AAFP members report if they report their certification to their AAFP CME record, then the AAFP automatically ports that over to the ABFM. So that's very helpful. For non-AFP members, they have to manually put that entry into our portal. And again, to make sure that you know your CME requirements, you can go to your My ABFM portal just to check and see a little speedometer fill up with the number of CME hours that you have. Next slide, please. So performance improvement. When I was just at 2 chapter meetings for 10 state and then multi-state on the other side of the country. And I usually start this part of the presentation by asking the question, how many of us want to be better people tomorrow than we are today? Well, of course, everybody's hand goes up, because we do things on a regular basis to improve our lives, to improve our situation and such. Like, we want to eat healthy, we want to maybe lose weight, we want to get a better occupation, and we do a sequence of things to make that happen if we possibly can. Well, that's what performance improvement is all about. So you could make the P in performance improvement, you could say personal improvement or professional improvement or product improvement. That's what it's all about. It's not just busy work just to make your life more miserable. That is not what it's about. And it's not something that's unique to the specialty of family medicine. Each specialty of the 24 specialties has their version of performance improvement. If you were a surgeon, they would say, okay, we need you to do so many surgical logs, and you need to present those to the American Board of Surgery, and that's how they do performance improvement. Okay, so again, I want to stress that it's not something unique to family medicine. So you can identify performance improvement opportunities or maybe gaps that you see in the way you deliver care. Maybe it's about patient flow, or about how you can improve the functioning of your practice. You get credit for any of those types of things, and then you answer the 9 questions. You have to have a start and say, well, this is why we did it. And this is how the situation was when we started it. And then we watched it over 30 days, 8 months or 3 months or whatever. And this is how it was when we tried to do this performance improvement. And here's a little nugget of wisdom to you. It doesn't always work. And all you have to say at the end of your 30 days is just that, well, we tried it, it didn't work. Okay, and this is why we think it didn't work. Okay, well, that was your outcome. Okay, there's a real human on the other side of that that reads what you submit, and they're like, "Oh, that's really interesting." And sometimes the ABFM will take some of the information that we've gotten from diplomates, and maybe we write an article about that. Well, we saw a lot of people that decided to do the augmented intelligence, and so we had, say, 30 diplomates that did a performance improvement activity on augmented intelligence. And then we say, well, gosh, this is a really good article. And so they may even reach back out to you and say, hey, could we write an article about your experience with augmented intelligence or with health equity or about, COVID-19 or any number of things. So it's not just about helping you improve, it's helping other diplomates improve what they do by looking at your experience. Next slide, please. So let's pivot for a moment over to professionalism. There's three components of professionalism. And again, this is not unique to us, but as a professional, are you giving care to the public that is safe? That's an expectation. Are you practicing at a level that is expected of a diplomate, of somebody that is board certified in the specialty of family medicine? And the third component is, are you honest? Are you ethical? Are you trustworthy? Those are the expectations of the public. And that's when your license certification is a step above licensure. Next slide. So do people lose their certification? Yes, they do, but it's uncommon. Only about 0.9% of diplomates are reviewed by our professionalism committee on an annual basis. And of that 0.9 that are reviewed, only about 0.9 actually lose their certification. So on the little graphic there with all these individuals, only you see one little yellow individual, that individual has lost their certification. And about 50% of those that have lost their certification get it restored. Most common issues are prescribing controlled substances inappropriately, or sexual misconduct, having sexual encounters with patients. And the third one is personal substance use, usually alcohol. Next slide. So what are the ABMS, which is called the American Board of Medical Specialty, has standards for continuing certification. This is for all 24 of the specialty boards. Family medicine is the 20th specialty of the American Board of Medical Specialties. And so in order to meet the standards of the American Board of Medical Specialties, they have mandated that all of their specialty boards convert over to a longitudinal assessment exam option, which is what I've spoken to you about earlier. And just for the record, of the 24 boards, we were kind of late to the game because we are the 17th of the 24 boards that have gone to a certification, a longitudinal assessment. And we're supposed to incorporate feedback into the self-assessment and the examination for learning opportunities. So that's what I told you. The longitudinal assessment gives you immediate feedback. And we're supposed to integrate activities to reduce administrative burden. Again, going back to the longitudinal assessment, you can do it at your own pace, wherever you want to do it, at the rate that you want to do it over those 3 years, 3 or 4 years. And we want to engage diplomats with ongoing process improvements. So this is, when you talk about process improvement and performance improvement, that is what the American Board of Family Medicine does on a daily basis. How can we make this process better for you. Going back to the performance improvement, when we see things that seem to be better, or we hear things that would need to be better, we try to implement those changes for you. What's new is that the assessment of diplomates can no longer be more than 5 years to retain their certificates. That's from the American Board of Medical Specialties. That's why it's in that blue box there. That the 10 years is no more, because we'd be violating the standards. So, and this isn't something unique to us. It can, I think there are other specialty boards that are less than 5 years. So nothing unique to us. Next slide. So let's talk in the last few minutes about continuous certification, the 5-year cycle. We want to make it flexible, as we've just spoken about, convenient, as was mentioned on the previous slide. And it's a certification that's your way, in the sense that you can do it at your own rate, own speed, at your own time. Next slide. Okay, so why the change? As I previously mentioned, the American Board of Medical Specialties standards mandate that we do these assessments at more frequent intervals. Less than 5 years, no longer the 10-year cycle, 7-year cycle, and such. And you know, medical specialties and the art of medicine is advancing at a very, very rapid rate. With lots of medical advances and changes in practice guidelines, especially with the advent of artificial intelligence, augmented intelligence, and such. You know, people are turning to Dr. Google for their information and such, and we have to stay on top of these things, and not kind of, well, this is the way I learned it when I got out of residency, so that's good enough. Well, it's not good enough. So that's why we need to stay on top of these things. And simply the continuous certification process, it needs to be simplified, so it's not so complex and inconvenient for you, the diplomates. So that's why the changes. Next slide, please. So this is a 5-year cycle. It's the longitudinal assessment will be at the core of that. And you no longer need to take the one-day examination ever again, unless you want to. So after you take it after residency, you have to take that one-day examination coming out of residency. But since longitudinal assessment is here and here to stay, you never have to take that one-day examination again. Those of you that, or those of us that are on that 10-year cycle, well, that's going to be honored. So that's not going to change. You still have your 10-year cycle, but you still have to do those 3-year stages in that cycle. All the other activities will continue, but you'll have more time for those. So those 3-year stages go away. Not for us that are in the 10-year cycle, but once you get into this 5-year cycle, those 3-year stages go away. So basically, if you look at it, the 3-year stage got pulled out to a 5-year stage. So just think of it as, oh, performance improvement. I don't have to do that every 3 years. I have to do that performance improvement every 5 years. So I have more time to do performance improvement. I have more time to do my self-assessments. Everything gets pulled out to 5 years. You can check your ABFM portfolio to see what your schedule looks like. If you're not sure exactly when you go into the 5-year cycle, go to your portfolio and it will tell you. The fees remain the same in 2025, and as long as we possibly can, at $200 a year. So it's not a money grab. We got some of that comments when we introduced the 5-year cycle. It's a money grab. And it's like, how is it a money grab? Nothing changes. So as long as we can keep it $200, we're going to keep it $200 a year. Next slide, please. So this illustrates what I am in and what you have been in as the 3-year cycle, 3-year stages that you have there. That's the 10-year cycle. At the end of your 10-year cycle, you will transition into the 5-year cycle. So yeah, if I'll use myself as an example. So I go into the longitudinal assessment in 2026. At the in October of this year, I will start getting notifications from the ABFM asking me to sign up for my 5-year cycle. And if I say, oh, I want to do the one-day examination, I will have to opt out of the 5-year, opt out of the longitudinal assessment. Okay, but you can see from the slide, your activity points are 50 points a year in each of those stages, 150 CME for each of those stages. Of course, you have to keep your license through all of this, and you pay your fee through all of this. Next slide, please. And then you have your 5-year cycle requirements. And again, it's what I've already mentioned about your answering your quarterly examination questions. You have to get 60 certification points per 5 years. And you have your continuing medical education. It's 200 CMEs over 5 years. And of course, you keep your professional license valid throughout that 5 years, and you pay your fee. Next slide. So this is basically what I just said. You have you sign up for your examination, and you do your 25 questions. You can do 100 per year if you just go straight through. And then as you can see, you would be finished in your 3rd year. Your 4th year would be a catch-up year, or if there's something that you haven't finished during that time, you would do that in that 4th year. If you choose to do the one-day examination, you would do that in the 4th year. You do your 60 certification points. You do an average of 50 CME a year. And then your 5th year, you have time off. Some other specialty groups, they are continuous. They do not have a break for you from one certification cycle to the next. So if you do your 3 years, get everything done, you would actually have 2 years off. So that would be a blessing. Next slide. And then I've already talked quite a bit about the benefits of the 5-year cycle. You never have to take the one-day examination again. You have more time, it's more flexible, and you can take that 5th year off, and there's no changes in the annual fees. Next slide. And I usually get to this slide and ask the question, how many of you have are paying the same thing for something today as you paid for that same thing in 2008? And that's not something that happens, but since 2008, your certification fee for the ABFM has been $200. It went up by, I think, $25 after the Great Recession, and then went back down in 2012. So your examination has no administrative fee, and your activities, this $200 includes all your National Journal Club and all your self-assessment activities and such. And if something unfortunate happened and you didn't pass the longitudinal assessment or the one-day examination, you can retake that for free. Next slide. Almost finished here. So this just basically talks about your My ABFM portfolio. You can go there and you can see the little thing, the little pie fill up about you doing your knowledge self-assessment, and you can look in there and see some information about your certification planner tool, and you can plan your certification activities. You can give us your preferences for how you would like to receive your messages. You can receive them by email if you wish to receive them, and something new is a texting option. It's like reminding you that, hey, you really need to get this done. You need to register for your longitudinal assessment or whatever. So that's your choice. And the coming soon should no longer be coming soon because it's here. The ABFM mobile app is actually available. So go to your portfolio and you can actually get the little app where you can get your get into your portfolio. Next slide, please. And for those of you that haven't downloaded your digital badge, I think right now we almost have 30,000 diplomates that have done a digital badge. This is a resource that you can use to tell your peers and your patients and the public that you're board certified diplomates. You can do that little scan code and pick that up if you want to. The digital badge is your digital certificate. It says that you are a diplomate of the ABFM, and it can be shared on LinkedIn, your Facebook, or whatever, and it can be embedded into your email signature. So make sure that you go to your portfolio and claim your digital badge if you haven't already done it. Next slide. And then I already told you about the ABFM website. It's been redesigned, it's been streamlined, so it's easier to navigate, and increases awareness about board certification. And it features diplomates, you and I, on the website. And it reinforces the reason that we are board certified, because it is a higher standard than just licensure. Next slide. And this is just basically volunteers that we have that write the questions. Sometimes people are really amazed that the questions are actually written by family physicians. And we have an amazing group of individuals that write the questions for the examinations and some of the self-assessments and such. So share your story, let us know. We're always wanting to write stories for the Phoenix magazine about what diplomates are doing out there. Next slide. Okay, yeah, I thought that was the last slide. So questions that you might have about what I talked about. I saw a few things popping up as I was going along.
Okay, Lloyd, this is actually, there wasn't any specific questions in the chat, and there was one that was mentioned that the state of Illinois does require for them to have 250 CME over a 5-year period, but of course that doesn't affect the 200 CME requirement for us. So as long as you're reporting it to the academy will report those to us automatically.
Right.
Have also, I wanted to mention for the physicians who just recertified in 2024, because I know that we are just certified, I should say, in 2024. We get the question of when they will start the 10-year certification. So in 2024, if you just took your exam and this is your first year in practice, you won't have to take or jump into that 5-year certification cycle until 2034. So you still have a ways before you have to do that.
Yeah, and actually, thank you very much for mentioning that, Ashley, because we do have a few individuals that are board certified. They're on that 10-year cycle, and they're saying, I don't want to do all those 3 stages, over the next 10 years. I want to be in the 5-year cycle. So we do have a mechanism for that to take place if individuals want to. It's not a whole lot that want to. They kind of like the idea of 10 years, and it's just like, no, that's fine. So it's really going to take 10 years for everybody to be in that longitudinal assessment, the five-year pathway. Any other questions? You're welcome, Gordy.
Sorry, I was on mute. Does anybody have any questions for Dr. LeRoy? I am going to paste in the message or in
Are
this
we
chat, the,
Hi, can we talk?
Yep.
Oh,
Dr.
okay.
Orgain. Yes.
Hi,
Hi
Hi,
there.
how are you, Dr. LeRoy?
Great. It's great to hear your voice.
Absolutely.
Always.
Thank you so much. I trust you that you will get better. And I'm sure you must be miserable. But let me just ask the question I saw something that in regards to if you didn't have any clinical activities and you're administrative, you didn't have to do something. What was that again? Can you repeat that?
Yeah, that's performance improvement. You
Yes,
can just
yes.
classify yourself as non-clinical, and so you don't have to do the performance improvement. Interesting enough, though, usually when we tell diplomates that, they're like, "Oh, no, no, no! I don't want to classify myself as non-clinical," and we're like,
Right.
"Well." Because they want to be able to say that they do some clinical activity and such.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, but yeah, you do not have to do that. You just check the box that you're non-clinical, and that's it. And I mean, it can change back too, because we just don't know how our life and career is going to navigate sometime, and then you find out that, oh, I got this great job opportunity, and I have to do a couple half days of clinical activity, and so okay, now you're clinical. You just report that back to the ABFM, and then we change your status. And
Yeah, some states
so,
require clinical activity, and that's why I
yeah,
want to know what, in order to maintain your license.
right, exactly,
So I
exactly.
wanted to know what
Yeah,
that entailed. So, all right, thank you.
you're welcome. Great question, though.
Anyone else have a question for Dr. LeRoy?
Let's see. It's 8 o'clock there in Illinois.
It is. It is. Thank you very much, Dr. LeRoy, for your presentation. Thank you very much, Ashley, for your support and running the slides. This is our contact information if you need to get in touch with us. And we thank you for your time. Have a
Thank
good
you,
evening.
everybody. Okay, take care now.
Thank you. I also put my email address in the chat if you all need to reach out for individual questions.
All right.
Thank you, Ashley.
Thank you.
Good night.